Guys, the Terra League just mega evolved, and there's so much information to talk about with this massive Pokemon leak. Don's already laughing about it. Hey everyone, Nick here. Alongside with me is Don and Zach to talk about these massive Pokemon leaks. Everything from the next 5 years of what the Pokemon company is going to be putting out in the way of games, new models for characters for Pokemon, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, I'm going to kick it off to you, Zach. Let's start off talking about some of these interesting leaks that are happening right now.
100%. Yeah, this is a massive leak, guys. This comes from the ongoing Terra leak that happened, I believe, last year. And we've got details of ZA all the way to plans of 2030, I believe. So we're going to dive right into it. I will say before we dive in, there will obviously be spoilers in some things because we are going over leaks. However, we have made sure to hold out certain details such as specific Pokemon that will be mentioned so that you guys, we're not ruining everything, but there has been stuff on very specific details. We're going to keep it to general bullet points with this so as to just have a overview of the whole process.
Zach, so what do we start with? Again, there's so much on this list, from like a new Legends game coming out, current Legends game, like the ZA that's not out yet. There's details on that. You want to start with that?
Yeah, so I think ZA is a perfect place to start. So one of the first things of note is that Legends ZA, while set in Kalos, was actually supposed to be a Legends Johto game. We were supposed to go back to Gen 2. Along with that, as you might have guessed, there's confirmation that the game was inspired by Xenoblade's combat system. And an original build had a very detailed, big map, but it was kind of condensed down for performance reasons. However, one of the most interesting things I think that we saw was there appeared to be a 4v4 multiplayer mode that almost had a first-person Splatoon kind of look to it, where you and four other players are in kind of a city block, and you throw out one Pokemon, and they are kind of just firing off moves at each other, which is crazy to think about. I don't even know how you implement that. Other things that were mentioned is that the Mega Dimension DLC will include 16 new Megas. So if you're concerned about if it's going to be a substantial DLC, there's your proof right there. You're getting a lot of Megas. We won't go over specifically which ones. And on top of that, if you were wondering how big Mega Dimension is going to be, there will be 98 new returning Pokemon that are not available in the base game. So a pretty sizable expansion.
So yeah, Don, what do you think about this? Like, what is the thing that jumps out the most to you out of all these details for ZA, which comes out, I mean, by the time people are watching this video, it might already be out.
It's mostly interesting about the Johto game, right? Because there was always that what-if scenario surrounding the Burn Tower, the legendary beasts, Ho and Lugia. Like, that scenario was always like kind of left on the table. And it was sort of the first thought I had after Legends Arceus. Would that be a way for them to tell that story? And the fact that they were thinking about it but then haven't is sort of the biggest bummer in all of this. Because don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about Legends AA by the time, hopefully tomorrow. But also at the same time, it's also Luminous City, and it's also a modern setting. And it's not exactly what I hoped the brand Legends would be. I was sort of hoping for them to go in that particular direction either way, but it seems like they were sort of holding out hope to do it at some point, but then sort of decided against it.
So when do you guys think that they kind of canceled development on it being Gen 2? Because again, Zach, you and I were talking about this last night. Like, there were 2 Gen 2 starters right off the bat, which is kind of odd that it's 2 Gen 2 starters, but like nothing else besides what Gen 4 with Tapig there. So like, when did they say, hey, no, we're going to cancel this and we're going to move on to X and Y for the new Legends game?
I mean, you have to be realistic, right? Like, they have to go through a conceptual phase, and at some point during that phase, they likely decided it's not necessarily the direction we wanted to go in, or we have a specific thing we want to explore, be it gameplay or story-wise. So it's really hard to say. They have left a lot of stuff open-ended, and even with Legends ZA, like, there are still questions about, for example, Zygarde and what that means, because they sort of left it at the wayside. So there's still plenty of opportunity there to do something different in the Pokemon universe. I do think that if they had to the point where they considered it, there must have been something that was holding them back. And it's really hard to say what it exactly would be.
Zach, do you have any idea what might be? Like, why, again, why didn't they go with Gen 2 for this game, and why X and Y?
So we will actually get into a little bit more to my theory as we go into these leaks. But just to jump ahead a little bit, I would say the time that they made this decision was around when they were making the DLC for Scarlet and Violet. And why I say that is because with the 2 DLC expansions, the Kitakami one and the Indigo Disc one, the Kitakami one is very heavily Johto inspired. There are a lot of Johto Pokemon that you can catch there. There are a lot of elements of Johto, especially in the architecture there. I believe there's even NPCs that kind of make allusion to Johto. So there's definitely a tie there. So I think it's possible, and again, we'll get into more leaks as these go down, but it's possible they made a flip-flop things around and move the Johto homage to the DLC as opposed to it becoming a Legends game, and decided to go in a different direction with Legends, as we now know, to the Kalos region.
Yeah, and besides the Johto news, like the Xenoblade news kind of got me pumped up, right? Because I'm a big fan of X and Y. And Zach, you and I were talking about this. I mean, I'm brand new to Xenoblade as of this year. I played Torna. I really enjoyed that. I played X. I really love the combat in X. And then when I saw the combat for this, I'm like, oh, this is straight up Xenoblade. So to have confirmation there, and even in the slides that they show, it's just like Pokemon plastered over Xenoblade X, which is kind of crazy to think about that. They're like, no, we are directly taking reference to the combat from Xenoblade X.
That is one of my favorite things about all these leaks, is that a lot of them are documents where it's literally a slideshow that they were sharing around. And so it's very, very kind of crude, not super professionally done. So there, like you said, there's literally one slideshow where it's just a screenshot of Xenoblade X with like a Pokemon trainer, like kind of just sitting there.
Yeah, so
also a good reminder that Monolith, Tokyo, and Game Freak work in the same building.
So they couldn't get assets or anything. They're just like, hey, can we just get this JPEG and just flash through the Pokemon on it? But yeah, so I guess any other details from ZA that we want to go over in this leak before we move on to the next game?
The Splatoon style 4 versus 4 mode sounds really interesting.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, why Splatoon? Like, why no other multiplayer game? Was it just because that's like Nintendo's really only big multiplayer game they had to compare it to? Again, like, was there pictures of this or anything that we saw at least, or was it just details on this one, Zach? Do you know?
Are you really asking if Nintendo makes a lot of multiplayer games?
Yeah, I mean, they don't really.
Yeah. So it's I think that's the only thing they could actively compare it to.
I'm like Smash. No, they wouldn't compare it to Smash. They wouldn't compare it to Mario Kart. They're not going to compare it to something like Mario Party. So I guess that's the only thing they had to compare it to.
They should compare it to Smash Brothers Team Battle. Absolutely, I agree with you.
From what I saw, so there's video of this new mode, and from what I saw, Splatoon, I think Don's 100% right. Splatoon was just the only thing that they had to kind of compare it to. It's not like Splatoon. You're not painting the ground or anything like that. It is very, from what we saw in the leaked video, it is very, you are walking with your Pokemon, and there's a reticle on screen, and there are other people's Pokemon, and you are just shooting what looks just like an energy blast, essentially, at other Pokemon. If I had to guess, maybe this was something they tried and scrapped and turned into the Battle Royale.
Battle Club.
Yeah, the Battle Club in the final game where it's the four trainers all together.
Yeah.
Which I think that makes a lot of sense. But it would have been really interesting to just have a separate game mode in a Pokemon game.
Yeah, again, like going back to the Splatoon comparison, Don, you were right. Like, I don't think they're going to compare it to outside IP. Like, they're not going to say, oh, Call of Duty or Battlefield or something random like that, just in case the documents get leaked, which they did, and people were like, wait a minute, why are they making a comparison to the games like they don't even own or have control over? But
Dang it, they should have compared it to Ninjala.
Oh my god. Zach and I played that at E3. Do you remember that, Zach? I mean,
that was honestly, that game was a lot more fun than I gave it credit for.
Definitely was. Okay, so I, think that's mostly it for the ZA stuff. Zach, where do we go from here?
All right, so moving right along, we're going to go a little out of chronological order, just because there's so much stuff on the last game we're going to cover that we'd cover the two things we know only a little bit about next. So staying with Legends, we got news of the next Pokemon Legends game, and it is going to be set in the Galar region. That is Gen 8, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
And it is scheduled for 2027, likely 2028. If you look at the timeline that leaked, it seems like things got pushed back a little bit across the board. So their estimate was 2027, could be 2028. And the game will be set in the Galar region over 1,000 years ago. And your goal is to make the first Gigantamax Pokeball. So pretty interesting, setting it 1,000 years ago. I think that's even later than Legends Arceus. I think Legends Arceus was only 500 years in the past. I could be wrong.
Don, do you know? I was going to say maybe like 600, but I might be
head.
thinking of a different game.
Could be, yeah.
And then two other features. Like I said, we only know a little bit about this. Again, screenshot of Xenoblade X combat with this one. So again, it's going to use similar combat to Legend ZA with the kind of Xenoblade inspired one. And then final one is that there will be giant boss fights against massive Gigantamax Pokemon. So if you remember, Gigantamax was the big gimmick in Gen 8 where Pokemon would grow in size and sometimes change form. And there's a screenshot of a massive, I believe it's Colossal, and the trainer, it looks like a Shadow of the Colossus, honestly. It is massive in the screenshot, and you will be kind of running around it and taking it down. So continuing the boss fights theme of Legends Arceus and Legends EA.
Don, what do you make of this? Are you excited that they're going to Galar instead? It seems like they're just jumping around for like the Legends games, right? Like what generations they're going to actually pick and go with.
I will say, not really.
I guess what were you hoping for that they would go with next? Again, Gen 2 would have been awesome, and it seems that that's off the table. But yeah, going right to Gen 8 is like, okay.
Yeah, I think the main reason is because they're chasing certain gameplay styles for Legends now. And sort of, Legends Arceus was the one to establish that. And I think after CA, they kind of want to continue that with something in this style, so they went for Galar as a prelude story. It is interesting. I don't necessarily feel about an even emptier Galar, because it was a very, very narrow spaces back and forth outside of the wild areas. So I don't know how to feel about that yet. And maybe that's the good thing, because I cannot visualize that in my head.
Zach, what do you think? Do you think Galar's actually going to be a little bit bigger now that we're going into the past, or is it still going to have kind of those issues that Gen 8 had?
I feel like it has to be similar to Legends Arceus, where you're going around to different areas, just because with the mechanic being Gigantamax battle,
there's got to be a lot of space.
I guess you could be transported to like one of those battlefields like in ZA where it's like its own enclosure, but to me that feels like you're going to have giant Pokemon and a big environment to run around them and maybe like get behind them or like get on their side and attack, which is also an interesting Xenoblade tie, because one of the big features of Xenoblade combat is side attacks and back attacks. So maybe they could be taking even more inspiration by Xenoblade and working in those kind of elements against these giant bosses.
Yeah, you have to expect that they're taking, again, we know it's a fact that they took inspiration from X. So, I mean, who knows like what other elements they're taking, like you said, Zach, like side attacks or back attacks for the next Legends game in line, which is very interesting to read about.
That doesn't sound to me like it's not like traditional, like a running around game, but more of a kaiju battle simulator.
Which sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does sound awesome for Pokemon.
It does sound really cool, but also I'm looking at the time frame they're placing this in. There's not much technology there in the grand scheme of things.
Mm.
Because again, like you said, Zach, you're building the first Gigantamax Pokeball. So at the end of the game, do you think you eventually create it and then you can Gigantamax your Pokemon? Like, is that going to be an option or no?
I would think that it has to be something along the lines of that. It's either got to be that's how you can Gigantamax your Pokemon, or that's how you can catch the
big
Gigantamax Pokemon that are out there. Like maybe they're running rampant, they're like rampaging all across the region, and the only way to ensure that they stop rampaging is to catch them in a Gigantamax Pokeball.
So yeah, before I guess we move on to the next game on the list, again, 2027, 2028, do you guys think that's too early for the next Legends game, or do you think that kind of goes in line with Arceus to ZA to the Galar one?
I am not shocked that they're on a 1.5-year cycle.
Yeah. Zach, what do you think? Are you shocked, or are you just like, this is for par for the course, right?
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm leaning towards 2028 just because it seems like there was a little bit of a delay in the cycle, and as we're going to get into later, there will likely be DLC for an upcoming game, which will be coming in 2026. So they will probably, it might be a little jammed to have this game and the DLC come out in 2027.
Right.
So I'm leaning towards 2028.
Yeah. It's also interesting to place it in the context now where mainline Pokemon games will not be leading the VGC charge on the other end, because it will mostly be Pokemon Champions from this season whenever it releases. So I wonder how they want to change up battle mechanics and then implement them later into Champions, because that will be a very interesting situation 2 or 3 years from now.
Oh, definitely. They're going to have to assign them all sorts of just different stats and abilities too, because I don't think the abilities are in the Legends games. So they kind of, it will be kind of cool because it'll, when those Pokemon, when the new Pokemon make their way to Champions finally, it'll almost be like getting new Pokemon, because you're seeing a whole new side of these Pokemon that you didn't know before, and all of a sudden something that didn't seem good is really, really good in the competitive, if you're into the competitive scene.
For sure.
Zach, so what do we got next after Galar? A new game, right? That it doesn't really have much information on it, but I think this one might have me the most excited besides the last game on this list, because just the small details it has, I'm like, okay, I think I would jump on this day one.
This is, to me, the most interesting game on here. There's very little we know about it. So it is called Project Seed and is scheduled for 2028. And the thing that has me the most skeptical is because this sounds like a Pokemon dream game, which it feels like we never get those. What this is, according to Leak, is that it is a online game playable by multiple people set in a region that connects the Hoenn region and the Sinnoh region. And what that means, essentially, is the first 4 generations were heavily inspired by Japan. And their different regions. And so those 4 regions, it is implied that they are kind of connected as a landmass if they were supposed to be represented as Japan. And what this is saying is that you will be able to go all the way from the top of Japan, which is where the Sinnoh region would be, all the way to the bottom of Japan, which is where the Hoenn region would be. And obviously you would have Kanto, Johto, and I believe they included Kitakami in the mix as well. So that's already interesting to have a multi-region game. We haven't had a multi-region game since Gold and Silver. And that was the thing that really made Gold and Silver so exceptional to a lot of people. But the most interesting thing about this, or I guess one of the most interesting things, is that this is going to be an MMO from the sounds of it. So this will be online, lots of trainers, battling, catching, running around. It's going to be a big kind of online game for Pokemon and Nintendo that I don't know that we've seen anything like that so far. It just sounds so crazy to even say. I can't even imagine what it's going to be.
Yeah, it seems almost too good to be true, right? Like you name all those regions that we can go back to. You say it's an MMO, which I can't remember the last time Nintendo has ever tried to do an MMO, if they ever tried to do one. it's escaping me. Or if there's any games that they have or had in the past that kind of reach that. Again, like going back to Xenoblade, Zach, we were playing X this year. We're like, oh my god, I wish this had like more MMO elements, because whenever we played online together, it was always just a pain. It's like, wait, why can't we do this? Oh, you can only do these things together. Oh, why can't we see each other over here? Oh, you can only do these things. So I'm trying to picture, and again, like, it's so too good to be true that if this actually goes through, like, what it actually looks like, and if they actually can uphold to an MMO standard. And on top of that, like, would they charge like a monthly subscription like WoW or Final Fantasy 14? Like, are they actually pushing this as a full-fledged MMO?
I think that's the difficult question, right? To me, like, the key wording here is prototyping project.
Yeah.
So they're solely looking into what the game conceptually will look like. That doesn't mean it will necessarily release, and I don't necessarily want to get people's hopes up, because it seems like they scheduled it in for that project to be completed, but it doesn't necessarily mean like the game is done.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a major up in the air when I look at how sparse the details is. For them, it's mostly seeing, hey, can we do this? Is this a possibility? And certainly, they will not only handle this themselves, because that seems like also a very massive undertaking.
Yeah, you gotta bring on, what's it
Completely
called
agree.
from Xenoblade? Why can't I think of it? Monolith Soft.
Monolith.
Right?
Monolith,
Like, bring them
yeah.
on, and then just make that dream Xenoblade MMO, which I don't think is going to be the case if they're working on this and whatever their future title is. But yeah, Zach, was there any other?
Man.
Go ahead, Don.
Hey man, Monolith Soft works on most Nintendo games these days. Even if it's their support studio, they're in most of the credits of games these days.
I was gonna say they are Nintendo's work. They're the little man in the machine, like back there, just chugging away for Nintendo.
Did they do stuff on Mario Kart or Donkey Kong? I feel like they showed up somewhere, and it was just like,
And
wait
also
a minute.
in Splatoon 3.
In Splatoon 3, yeah, they just show up randomly. It's like, wait a minute, what are they doing here? But yeah, Zach, was there like any other details on this that we kind of missed out on? Or again, since it's so early on, like Don touched up on that, there's nothing really to talk about because it's so early in development.
So two things I'll touch on, one to both of your points. Don is 100% correct. This does say a prototyping project, and of all of the leaks, this is the one that we not only know the least about, but have seen the least about. There's not really any concept art necessarily. There's very sparse details. There's concept art of the Galar Legends game out there, and there's screenshots in game. With this, I think there's maybe one concept art, but it almost looks like something you would use at like a pitch meeting. So
like more
it
text
is
and
entirely
actual
possible
stuff on the screen.
It's one of those like where it's one trainer and like a landscape in the background, kind of thing. So it's very broad, to say the least. And then speaking to your point, Nick, that was my biggest question: is how MMO is this going to be?
Yeah.
Like, is Pokemon seeing how big their user base is and how dedicated their user base is, and saying, maybe we could go the MMO route? And that is what, like, people have been asking for, something akin to that, not necessarily a full MMO, but a massive online Pokemon game. And if they do end up tacking on a charge, I don't know necessarily they would, but if they did, I would see them maybe rebranding Pokemon Home into like Pokemon Online, and it's included in your Pokemon Online subscription.
That would make sense, because I mean, you don't want to muddle the extra subscriptions on top of that, right? Like, I mean, what is it besides Pokemon Home that you can subscribe to for Pokemon? Is it really just that for right now? And like you said, like, it would be nice if they can kind of bundle that in with the next game or the MMO game.
Are you talking broadly about the entire Pokemon franchise? Or are you talking about one specific thing? Because I can name a few things you can buy a Pokemon subscription for.
Oh, I guess, yeah, okay, so mostly just games, because what, I'm pretty sure you can subscribe to the show or something online. Is that something, or no?
You can subscribe to Pokemon Sleep. You can subscribe to Pokemon TCG Pocket.
And Pokemon Friends.
Yep.
And there's battle passes.
Oh no,
Pokemon
Pokemon Friends. Pokemon Friends
is it a one-time charge?
Pokemon Friends is a one-time charge. Yeah. But no, it's, you know, in the broader scope, it just seems like the next step of monetizing the Pokemon franchise in a unique way.
I like how you phrase that, Don, because that's how they're gonna say it in their direct. But
well, I think also.
Go ahead, Zach.
I think also they saw how big Pokemon Go was and how much community formed around that. and having another game where everyone is kind of involved at the same time, I feel like would be massive for them.
Oh yeah, Pokemon Go has battle passes now. That's true.
But yeah, to your point, Zach, yeah. I mean, I remember playing Pokemon Go when it first launched, and every single person, from kids to parents, were playing it. Even if they didn't like Pokemon, like, you had to play it because everyone was doing it. But I think that really covers it for the first three main games or projects or whatever you want to call them. But the biggest one... Go ahead, Don. Do you have one more thing before we jump on to the big one?
Yeah, before we go to the big one, I will say, though, the landscape of games has really changed over the last 2 years. Games as a service are a bit more on a down low, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if it stays a bit longer in a prototype concepting phase.
So 2028 schedule, you think that's too early for it then? Maybe 2029 or 2030?
Hard to say, you know. To me, if they want to do this, they should also do it right. So I do think they should take more time with it if they make an entirely new thing out of it.
I think that's a good segue, honestly, into we're gonna do just a couple of miscellaneous things that didn't fit in anywhere else. The two biggest ones to share is that Pokemon Gen 11 is scheduled for 2030.
Yep.
No details on it whatsoever, so don't expect anything. There's absolutely nothing on Gen 11, just that in a internal document they scheduled it to be 2030, and then also there will be no Pokemon Black and White remakes, or at least there's none planned right now. However, some have found a back and forth exchange on saying they would like to go back to Black and White, but they would like to give it a lot of time. And so that it is implied that they're not going to do that until after Gen 11. So really interesting on that front. There will be no remakes until at least 2030, seemingly, which is very surprising.
And hopefully a lot of time is more than like a year and a half or 2 years. Hopefully they're actually serious about that statement.
No, the only thing I will say to that is cowards.
About what point? About no remakes?
Go back to Gen 5, you cowards. What is stopping you? You made an entire set this year of Pokemon cards specifically based on Unova Pokemon. You put references in the DLC of Scarlet and Violet. You cannot be serious and saying, oh, we don't want to go back to Gen 5 this soon. You've been dropping hints every single step of the way. Come on.
I mean, this soon. When did Gen 5 first release? Like 2010, 2011? It's been such a long time. So whenever the remakes for Black and White come out, it'll probably be maybe the 20th anniversary for them, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. I mean, they jumped on the opportunity with BDSP. Why wouldn't they do it the same with Black and White?
Yeah, so Zach, before we jump on, one more thing that's kind of like a side thing. Maybe it is tied to the next big thing, but I just want to go over the Pikachu getting a redesign, which is crazy. Yes. That's crazy to think about. Like, if you see the images or whatever, I'll let you describe it, because it is just kind of wacky to think that we're doing a redesign for Pikachu.
All right, so spoilers. The next thing coming up is going to be the Gen 10 of Pokemon, and one thing we have found is a model of Pikachu. However, this model looks significantly different than the Pikachu that we've seen in the past. Pikachu is getting a redesign for Gen 10. So for the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, Pikachu is going to have a new look, and I'm sorry to all the fat Pikachu lovers out there. He got even skinnier with this new redesign. He, not by much, but a little bit skinnier. And the biggest difference with this redesign is the head of Pikachu is a lot rounder and the ears are a lot longer. And if you compare it to a lot of the 2D artwork they use in VGC and the World Championships and the trading card game, and a lot of the silhouettes of Pikachu that they use as just a logo for Pokemon, it looks very similar to that. So in my mind, I'm thinking they're going for a Mickey Mouse silhouette kind of thing of the iconic, head and ears. And this fits that a little bit better.
You know what it reminded me of, and I'll post it in our chat so you guys can see it. It reminded me of the Pikachu card they released for Sun and Moon, for Burning Shadows. Which, this predates it by a good number of years. This was 2017.
It's interesting because we have a precedent already for redesign in Donkey Kong. of how they kind of rolled that out. So it'll be interesting to see how they roll out Pikachu's redesign. Will it be kind of like a ceremonious thing, or will it kind of just drop, similar to how Donkey Kong did in Mario Kart World?
And the thing is, I can see it going either way.
Yeah.
I can see it at the next Pokemon Presents. They spend like 5 minutes talking about the Pikachu redesign, and they go into all the finite little details. Like, oh, we had to make the ears like this, and we had to make the face more round. Something like with Miyamoto talking about the new redesign, old redesign of Donkey Kong when they did it for the movie. But at the same time, like, they could just drop it on social media and be like, hey, here's a new Pikachu redesign.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think they're gonna say a darn thing.
It's just gonna slip
because
in there.
because here's the thing. They've been using that similar type of model for a lot of their 2D art, including Pokemon cards, like I just showed you, including a lot of the logos. I don't think this is as far of a stretch as most people believe it is. That they're just gonna drop it to a game. It's like, yep, this is it.
So I guess to that point, when Gen 10 does get revealed, do you think they just show Pikachu with the new redesign and everyone else just kind of blows it up online, making a bigger deal out of it than the Pokemon Company is actually making it to be?
Yeah. You know what it's going to be?
Yeah.
It's going to be, they're going to do the Pokemon Day Direct, and it's going to be DJ Pikachu again, but this time with a new look.
I like that, and I'm also picturing DJ Pikachu with a bunch of other different types of Pikachus around, like the fat Pikachu, like the old school one, or maybe like the Gigantamax Pikachu, or just different variations of Pikachu all around.
The original TCG art Pikachu.
Yeah, I love that one so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, Zach, Gen 10, where do we start? Because besides the Pokemon MMO or the Project Seed, this one is probably the most interesting, because this one is like tangible, because we figured out that Gen 10 was probably going to come out next year. So like this one has all the information. They're prepping up for this, they're getting ready for this, they're getting ready for the 30th anniversary. There's a ton of stuff here.
So this is the big one. Pokemon Gen 10, here we go. Scheduled for 2026. This is likely going to be called Pokemon Winds and Waves, is going to be the name of it. And not mentioning the leak or anything specifically, but we all know if it comes out in 2026, that will be the 30th anniversary of Pokemon. So from the sound of this, it seems like they're going big with it, and we'll get into that a bit. To start, let's go over the region. So we don't have a name for the region, but we do know the region will be based off of Indonesia and Southeast Asia. One interesting thing was they went over where they considered, including Canada, Greece, Scandinavia, and the US West Coast, and ended up going with Indonesia and Southeast Asia, specifically to go along with a lot of the environments they were looking for, specifically islands and jungles. And we're going to get into that in a little bit.
I think it makes sense, considering how many Pokemon centers they've been dropping into Southeast Asia as of late.
Have they been popping up there pretty frequently?
Yeah. There is a dedicated Indonesia branch of the Pokemon Center, I believe. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Zach.
I mean, that adds up perfectly. I think that ties into exactly what they're going for. It's a good market for them, obviously a growing market, and of just a very diverse area to begin with that you could do a lot of stuff with. So going on with that theme of the kind of Indonesia and Southeast Asia, there will be a lot of jungles, and there will also be a lot of islands. And with those islands, not only will you be surfing, but you will be exploring underwater. There is a physics engine they have shown off aptly for the Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves, the two physics engines in this new, completely redesigned Pokemon game engine. We're showing off wind physics and wave physics. So there are going to be very interesting environments to explore for this game, it looks like. One thing that I believe it's not confirmed, so I didn't want to include it, but I believe I saw someone mention that this game is going to take a lot of inspiration from Alola and their island process, and I believe there was a director who was also supposed to be working on this game, but I can't confirm that. But it adds up with the water and island process that's where they're going.
Yeah, I like the diving mechanic, because that kind of ties back to Gen 3 when you go to the final gym, you have to dive underwater. But again, you really don't do much with it because it's so early on with Pokemon, and it was just a cool little feature to have. But seeing that they're actually adding physics and like a physics engine to this game or going full on with it kind of makes me think like what they're actually going to do with it in the long run of the game. Like, is it actually going to affect anything in the gameplay?
Well, so one other interesting feature is they say that all big Pokemon will be rideable and all small Pokemon will be able to be like petted or interacted with. So the rideable part is going to be very interesting for those environments of, will you not be able to cross those environments unless you have a ride Pokemon that is capable of either flying or surfing or diving. And that could be a way to kind of bring back the spirit of HMs without the tedium of HMs. Of now it feels like, oh, I have this Pokemon that's capable of this thing. It's not taking up a move slot. It's just a attribute of this Pokemon.
And also, what was similar in Alola, right? Because you didn't own those Pokemon, but you could ride Pokemon, I believe. Yes. I think it was like Mudsdale. I think it was maybe Snorlax. Do I remember that correctly?
That sounds right. And then I think there was the Sharpedo.
A Lapras, maybe?
No, I think the Lapras was in Let's Go Pikachu.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's similar to that, for sure.
All right, so this is the kind of mind-blowing thing about this. So the theme of the game is infinity. And what that means is that apparently this game will have procedurally generated islands, and that each new playthrough will be different from the last. On top of that, there is it's called a seed Pokemon that will be joining you early in the game. It'll start as a baby and it'll evolve into a legendary. And when it evolves, its design will also be procedurally generated. So it will have different colors, different patterns, and other different elements for each player, which is crazy to think about the amount of possibilities of not only this Pokemon, but the entire game. And also they do note that when the Pokemon is traded into games such as Champions or future games, it'll go back to a default form. But in Pokemon Winds and Waves, it will have a unique form to everyone.
That makes sense.
Do we think that this is going to be pretty detailed, or is it just going to be like whatever the Pokemon design is, and there might be a horn where there's maybe like a flat surface for some other players, or maybe there's like stripes on the back for some players, and then other players have just spots on the back? Like, is it going to be something as simple as that? Or like if I show you guys the legendary baby that I have, it's going to look completely different from what you guys have?
That's hard to say really, because obviously you have to need to have prerequisites for a randomly generated element. So the island one makes total sense, but what I'm wondering with the Pokemon in particularly, how many patterns do you have? How many colors do you use?
Yeah.
Because if you can have completely one Pokemon, that means you need to have a ton of options. In my world, when I think about this, there's a possibility that yours and mine could be similar.
I believe the specific details was since this is a seed Pokemon, whatever it will evolve into will be very grass oriented, and I think the big thing that will be different is it will have procedurally generated flowers on it. So a lot of its flower design and flower placement will be completely random.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, I do like that. Again, I don't know how far they're going to take it. And same thing with the procedurally generated islands. Like, I hope that there is a multiplayer aspect to this, just like Scarlet and Violet, and where I come to your island, Zach. I'm thinking of Animal Crossing. And maybe I don't have specific Pokemon tied to, like, my islands, but your larger island, you have, say I'm looking for, I don't know, like a Mr. Mime. I don't know why Mr. Mime would be in an island, but maybe I have to go there and I join you and I'm like, oh, this is where I can catch a Mr. Mime because I don't have it on my island. So hopefully it's more than just like the Pokemons in the regions, and the actual locales look completely different as well.
I mean, once again, like, procedure generations are formed from building blocks.
Yeah.
So there obviously will be certain limits in place on which Pokemon can land on an island. But I'm assuming that if they already have talked about it, they have thought about it.
All I know is people who make guides for Pokemon are going to have a real headache with this one.
Yeah, let's like go to this island. I went to that island and nothing was there.
It doesn't exist in my game. So
I don't think people
that,
will bother with randomly generated islands if I'm being completely real with you.
that's fair.
Go ahead, Zach.
But on that topic, so what they're going for is a mix of open world and quote MMO elements. So again, the MMO comes up. However, they specifically go into detail on the MMO elements of what it will be is that I believe they call it Naya. And it will be, if you get to an island, you can save that island, and then you can have your friends save that. Like, if you save that procedurally generated island, you and up to 3 friends can go to that island. You can kind of like summon it and all go to it together. And I assume there will be various things you could do on it. But that's going to be the element of 4 people on an island at once.
Yeah.
Moving.
Go ahead, Zach. No, I was gonna say. I mean, I hope hopefully the multiplayer is a step up from Scarlet and Violet, because we had such a good time playing the Scarlet and Violet multiplayer, but at times I felt like, I don't know, it was just limited. So hopefully the interactions between people in this one, especially with the island thing, that sounds amazing. Or we can share different islands, or we go to your island, because like again, I'm missing a specific Pokemon. Instead of worrying about trading, I could just go to that island and catch it myself.
But what sort of worries me there is that, what is the point then of doing, for example, solo challenges on completing a Pokédex? Because there are people who want to stay to one game and one game only. Do you have to go through dozens of procedurally generated islands to see the one Pokemon you need?
You're just like nuking islands, like you just get rid of them. Like, all right, I'm moving on to the next one. Let me get rid of that one. Let me get rid of that one until I find the one I want.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would say that the islands are themed all the same, but their layout is completely random. So it's not going to be, you're not going to know the route every time to get to where you need to go to.
Sure.
But on that topic, so how the game will operate, this is going to be a very big open game. You can challenge the final boss right away. However, they said that is not recommended. And the game will feature 18 challenges, and they'll be split up into different categories similar to Scarlet and Violet. So there will be challenges where you're going and battling boss Pokemon, challenges where you're doing something akin to the Gym Leader Challenge. And I believe there were things like Island Restoration was one of them. So you'll be doing kind of side quest errands to improve some of the islands, or maybe improve the hub. This game, the story of it, just roughly, is that you are not from this region. You and your mom wins a trip, and you go to this region, and you will be in a hub area that is a massive hotel. And so the hub area is going to be where players can all gather at for kind of an MMO experience, and then you will branch out from the hotel.
So what you're saying is that this is Monster Hunter.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking Monster Hunter, and I've been playing that a ton recently. I was thinking Pokemon Concierge once you said the hotel element.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe you can take care of Pokemon or do things just like the show there. But I don't know if there's going to be any elements from the show in the game here.
But yeah, if you have a hub and you go outside that hub and you go to a certain section, an open world section, isn't it just basically Monster Hunter?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point, honestly. Which maybe they're taking inspiration from that. Obviously, we don't have explicit confirmation like the Xenoblade screenshot, but it's entirely possible that they see something like that, especially if they're going for an MMO vibe. I think Monster Hunter is one of those games where it's iffy if it's an MMO, but it has very MMO party up elements.
Sure, yeah.
So that could be the kind of thing, when they say MMO elements, that could be what they're going for, is something akin to a Monster Hunter, where you're squatting up with friends and taking on a challenge.
And Zach, you mentioned that they say you can go on to the final boss right away, and there's 18 different challenges akin to something like Scarlet and Violet. My biggest hope that they learned from Scarlet and Violet, besides all the glitches and everything, is that they actually take into account level scaling. I really hope that's the case for this game. If they want you to explore, they want you to go to different areas, I really hope that it's catered or tailor-made to how you want to play the game. Because when I played Scarlet and Violet, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to this gym and this gym and just this gym. I think I ended up fighting the 4th gym when I was already level like 40 or 50, and I was just kind of like blown past everything. So it kind of like hindered the experience for me, even though I treated it like a completely open world game and I wanted to do anything in my own way.
Sure. I will say though, like, if they say you can challenge the final boss right away, but it's not recommended, It sounds like you're still having to work with level gaps and unlocking the level gauges as you go along.
Which
That's exactly
stinks.
what
Like,
I was
hopefully
thinking.
that's only the case for the final boss. But again, like, I mean, yeah, if they say that in the documents, it's probably not the case that there's going to be level scaling here, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
So the last point, and this is my biggest my biggest thing that stood out to me, is that there is no confirmation yet if this game is turn-based or not. That's a big thing for me. I am a diehard turn-based guy. I love the competitive scene. I love turn-based JRPGs. So that is my thing, and I was all for the Legend series shaking things up because it is a spin-off. That's a good way to experiment while the kind of like core base is sticking to the traditional style. If this ends up adopting Legend ZA's battle system, we could be seeing a whole new era of Pokemon. And it could also be why Pokemon is not remaking any of the old games anymore, is maybe they are trying to shift everything into this idea of that MMO style battle of, with cooldowns similar to Xenoblade. And they're emphasizing all this MMO language within the future games. I guess the question is, do you think that they're moving on from turn-based battles for good?
No. I think the reason why they created Legends is to experiment with that.
That is my hope. I am hoping that we are still going to have the turn-based battles in the main series of games, and then they can get really creative with how they want to go about different play styles in the Legends games.
So, Zach, the details on that in the documents, did it just say no confirmation if the game was turn-based, or was there any more details on that?
It just said there is no confirmation.
That's the thing. It's just odd that that's even highlighted in there. Because you would think that this is Gen 10, they already know what Gen 10's like, because it's going to play like Gen 1 through all the way Gen 10. So why are they even playing or kind of entertaining that idea of transforming it into something more like a Legends gameplay? It's just kind of odd that they even mentioned that.
I will tell you the honest reason. I think because that style will be reserved for champions.
That's a little bit of my fear, is that if you want your turn-based fix, Champions is going to be your only outlet, which I am incredibly excited for Champions, and I think it'll be a very fun kind of ecosystem to get Pokemon from the outside games and then bring them into Champions for the battle, and they'll just have their assigned stats and things like that inside Champions. But I don't know, there's just something about turn-based battles in Pokemon that I love.
Yeah, I do think Champions will have a massive ripple effect going forward. Like, because there are so many different places you can get Pokemon now. Even across Switch, there are like a multitude of games, and including what coming to Switch 2 afterwards. By the end of this life cycle, almost everything you can possibly want out of a Pokemon game is in the Pokemon game. There are only like a number that haven't returned to a Pokemon game yet on Switch, but that number is coming increasingly lower by the game they release.
And I guess I'm the only one that's okay with the change, even though I do find it odd that it's part of Gen 10, and you would think that they would stick with the tradition of turn-based, because I prefer something like the ZA that is kind of that active base, or more in line with the Xenoblade Chronicles X, because I love that gameplay style. But again, it's just so odd that they would be changing. But the points you guys made are completely valid, that they'd be sticking with Champions for that traditional style play.
Yeah, I mean, it will be the dominant way of play. I'm not sure if it means it will entirely go away in regular mainline games. I don't think it will be gone entirely. I don't think you still want to have that core audience that likes the turn-based style of gameplay regardless. But I'm also thinking that Game Freak is very open to the idea of experimenting, mostly because the Legends games now exist.
Yeah, I will note. This was a letter from the editor, I guess, with these leaks. Was they did say under that note about no confirmation, they said, note, Game Freak has been known to make major changes late in the past. It could be possible that they are waiting to see how ZA is received and its battle system is received, and they might have a plan for both.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about, that the game Gen 10 is probably going to be announced in the next, what, 4 or 5 months? And there could be something on the table saying, like, hey, we're going to wait till ZA comes out and see how the fans react to the overall gameplay of that. And then maybe they'll change something last minute where it's like, no, we're going with the new style for Gen 10, which is crazy to think about.
I do think it's interesting that the dogs mentioned that it's only going to be on Switch 2. I think it's interesting that they're dropping it so soon after Legends today. My thought process was, for the anniversary next year, they would continue like supporting Switch 1, because like there's still a massive audience on Switch 1. But you know, it also makes sense, like, considering how much they have to downscale the original versions of games they make, that they just want to move on to Switch 2.
And that's what Zach and I had. We had an argument or discussion debate. It was during the summer on the beach for like 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
Well, we don't know yet. Right. We don't know yet. This is in the documents.
Yeah,
it could change. But I was on Don. I was on the side with you. I was like, this game is Gen 10 is coming for both consoles. I was like, the Switch demographic or market is so huge that I can't see them just dropping it on Gen 10. But then again, it's like, if all these details with the procedure or the generated islands and the MMO style of gameplay, like if they're really going this big for Gen 10, there's no way the Switch 1 can handle it. But again, if they want to work around that, they just have a Switch 1 and a Switch 2 version.
But it's more technical, right? That's why, for example, I'm not surprised that, for example, Pokopia is only on
Switch
2, because like the team behind it, which is Koei Tecmo, who also made that specific team, I think also made Dragon Quest Builders. Those are very demanding physics-based games, and if you're making a whole new physics specifically for a Pokemon game, collaboration with Nintendo and Game Freak, it makes sense to me that you would only make that Switch 2.
And like you said, the physics engine, I mean, that's in this game, right? There are details on a physics engine for Wind and, what's it? I can't even remember the name. Wind and Waves. So it's just crazy that they're putting that much effort into that. Again, making it fully playable or only playable on Switch 2.
Once again, I'm not shocked by it. I'm more surprised that they're saying, Switch 1, nah.
Yeah, so that means, I guess, for Switch 1, the last thing for Pokemon is probably going to be the DLC for ZA, right? Like, that's
Champions.
Well, I guess, when does the DLC for ZA come out?
We don't know.
We don't know
yet. We don't know the DLC, so I'm going to say the last big one is going to be Champions, because it's also on Switch 1. Yeah.
Yeah, so is there any other things that we kind of missed going over? Again, we covered a lot. There's a lot of information. There's probably stuff that we missed. There's definitely stuff that we missed because, again, there's just so much information of this coming out. And Zach, you were telling me about it, that the leakers wanted to drop this right before ZA came out, not to, like, I guess, dampen the hype for ZA. And I'm just shocked they released it this close to ZA. Like, wait at least another month or two. I mean, we haven't even played the game yet.
It is funny. It almost seems like, because there are a lot of leaks for ZA. It always happens with Pokemon games. The week before the decks will get leaked and everything. And it almost kind of read like the leakers saw everyone else leaking stuff and was like, oh yeah, this is fun to do. Why don't I jump in on this? I have a bunch of stuff to leak.
Like the information we were gonna find out regardless in a week or so, it's like, okay, that stuff leaks, but the stuff we might not even figure out or might not even see because it might not even exist for like the next 5 years of Pokemon is just insane to think about. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for us, unless you guys have any last minute thoughts or things to cover.
Nope.
The only thing I have, I don't want to go into too many of the other small details, but just to comment on the releasing on Switch 1, Switch 2. So one thing to note, I didn't want to go into all the like super small details, but apparently Scarlet and Violet's DLC had a lot of issues. It was originally supposed to be set in Kalos and Alola, and they changed that, possibly because they wanted to do Legend ZA in Kalos, and so they had to flip everything. And those troubles ended up pushing the timeline. So ZA was, according to their internal documents, supposed to come out last year.
That's crazy to think about.
They got a really late start on it.
I would have loved Alola as DLC. Like, I think a lot of those Pokemon, a lot of those Pokemon are designs in that genre bangers.
It's kind of funny to think about that whole kind of triangle of games of, so the Scarlet and Violet DLC was supposed to be Kalos and Alola. We ended up getting a Kalos Legends game, and we're getting a Gen 10 that is very island based, similar to Alola. And then what we were supposed to get for the Scarlet or what we actually got for the Scarlet and Violet DLC was a Johto inspired region, which we were supposed to get a Johto Legends game, and Unova inspired region, which we are no longer getting Black and White remix. So it's a weird kind of like triangle there of all three of those games.
But hey, listen to this, Fairy. If you would have had the DLC in Alola, maybe Looker would have still been there, and then it would tie back to Legends CA with Emma.
But that's just a theory.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, so I think that's going to do it. I think we covered, again, most of the information. There's so much of it online. There's probably going to be more of it after ZA comes out. But yeah, I guess before we leave, where can everyone find you guys? Don, we'll start with you.
You can find me at Nintendan, as NANTNDAAN, on Blue Sky, Twitch, whatever.
Zach, what about you?
Yeah, you can find me at just my name, Zach Volpicelli, ZachVolpicelli, on X or Twitter, wherever you want to call it.
And you can find me on my personal channel, that's Steftendo, STEFTNDO. Go check it out. I'll also be here on GameXplain streaming Pokemon Legends ZA tomorrow, so I'm pretty excited about that. But until next time, have a good one, everyone. See ya.
Ciao.